forth. And this is the day when the kind of WrestleMania, the wrestler will stand there and talk to the announcer and talk trash and then go
that
wrestle.
still happens, just so you know.
Yeah.
Well, back then it's when it was new. They first figured it out. Okay, that's a lie. That's not true. But, so they're sending these tapes back and forth, and finally there's I don't know if it was proffered as a way to broker peace between the two, but they go on the Letterman show, and we watch this, and they're kind of being civil, and then it slowly starts escalating until Kaufman says something. Lawler stands up and smacks Kaufman in the face and knocks him out of his chair, at which point Kaufman stands up, and the version we watched together today was edited for foul language.
Well, and we should also mention that at this point, Andy Kaufman is still wearing his neck brace.
And still in character.
5 months later.
Yes.
Yeah.
And still in character.
And by the way, I don't think Letterman's live.
Isn't it?
I don't think so. I thought they taped it like in the afternoon.
Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
You know, you're probably... Well, I don't know if it was at that time. That's my problem.
They had videotape in 1983.
No, what I didn't know is I actually had never thought to look to see if Letterman was live, but you're probably right.
Yeah.
It probably was not live. But he freaks out, and Kaufman freaks out, and wisely, and this is the part I love the best. He gets on the other side of Letterman's desk and puts Letterman between him and Lawler, and starts swearing at Lawler and saying,
he seems to be genuinely angry too.
Oh,
like I said, he was a good actor.
He was spitting mad, foul language, like the beeps. You know how sometimes you'll hear somebody beep, it's like beep, word, beep, word. No, this is just beep, 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 beep. It sounds like Morse code. They're beeping him so much, and they're actually blacking out his face or his mouth.
Apparently, Letterman was not in on it because he's like
he's cowering. Letterman is cowering between the pair of them. If you watch, there's certain angles, and you can just see him
he's
just
looking a little nervous.
He's just like, oh God, what's going to happen? And at the end, he grabs Dave's coffee and
that's
he
not
throws
Dave's.
it.
Andy grabs
Dave's coffee and throws it in Lawler's face.
And then runs away. I encourage you to watch this if you haven't already. Our retelling, but still fun. Yeah. But you should watch this for sure.
This thing is actually, I would recommend, if you're going to watch this whole thing that happened with Lawler, we may post this up, but there is a YouTube playlist that is almost 2 hours long of all of the crap that happens back and forth between these guys.
Oh yeah,
and it is
good.
It is so absurd. It is, again, it's just taking the joke and never letting it go, and it just gets funnier and I watched it, and after a half hour, I was like, God, I want to watch more. And then 20 minutes later, I'm about to pee myself. I'm laughing so hard.
And I'm sure that after the Letterman thing, I'm sure Lawler and Andy Kaufman probably met at the bar around the corner and had a beer together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But they took it so far. At one point, Kaufman is offering money to other wrestlers to quote unquote take out Lawler, and then eventually he tag teams with another wrestler, and I can't remember who it is, but they beat him, and then Kaufman's running around in the crowd saying he's the king of wrestling, at which point Lawler runs out of a crowd and throws a fireball of some kind in Kaufman's face, and they show Kaufman in the back room all burnt up. I mean, like, they never let it, this whole thing went on for over a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On national television.
Yeah.
Never broke.
I know. I remember when this happened too. It makes me feel kind of old. Yeah, because I remember talking to my friends about it at the time. We were like, "Dude, is this for real?" And most of us were like thinking not.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
But it kept going on and on. And of course, there's the whole thing. When Andy died, some wrestling announcer asked Lawler about him, and he said very few words, but made it sound like he didn't like him at all.
He kept it up.
He kept it up. He had, I'm guessing, must have told Andy, I'll keep the character going, and would not give in. So this is one of those things where this is an example of Kaufman ran a gag that was so above and beyond, and he planned it out so far in advance, and he let it run for so long. and of course, Zamunda, Bob is involved.
Support of your
of Andy is alive.
To get back to
right.
Alive, yeah.
And of course, Bob is involved in this thing the whole time. So he's the man behind the scenes that nobody sees that's setting things up. So Bob's working tirelessly for him. The only thing in this entire theory that doesn't work is who the hell was in the casket, which I've seen various tellings of. There's two different ways that this goes. One is that Andy never was sick, and he actually met a cancer patient who agreed.
Or an AIDS patient.
Or an AIDS patient. He met a sick patient who was willing to stand in for him and be in his casket and let Andy run this gag. Or Andy did actually have cancer, but the treatments actually did cure him, at which point he found this person who was willing to be his body double and sit in the or lay in the casket, as the case may be, for him, and that's where the body came from. I gotta say, everything else about Andy Kaufman and how he masterminded this crap, I want to believe. The body double is the only thing that I have a hard time getting behind.
Well, it's a tricky part, but the thing about it is that if he really had lost a lot of weight and everything, he was looking like he died of cancer, possibly. He could have just had himself drugged and been laying in the coffin, so that way when people poked him, he didn't react. He was out cold.
Possible.
And then later on, he gets out of the coffin, and it's of course taken off and buried. So, possible.
Have you looked at the pictures of Andy Kaufman, like when he was sick? Like when he's emaciated and sick?
He looks terrible.
It doesn't really look like him.
Oh, okay. Are you looking at the ones that are the photograph reproduction in the newspapers? Or, okay. Yeah, some of those, the problem is that black and white photography was crap, and most of it was done as black and white. And he looks like hell, but it also... I've known some people who got pretty sick, and they didn't look like they had a year or so prior.
For sure. Yeah. But, I mean, just because I, like you, want to believe that Andy totally faked the whole thing for this, quote-unquote, hilarious gag. So I kind of, I'm looking for that stuff, right? I'm looking to say, well, it doesn't totally look like him, so it could totally be someone else. He did go away for a while, for 6 weeks.
Right.
And came back looking totally different. So what's to say that he didn't?
Well, he didn't look totally different, but he went downhill immediately upon his return.
He looked totally different when he returned.
Okay.
The one thing, he was black.
Yeah. Right.
And he answered to the name Bob Zamunda.
Yeah. It was weird.
It was very really strange.
Yeah.
The last thing that I have here. So Kaufman got a weird kind of cult following. I mean, not too long after his supposed death.
People are still writing about, did Andy fake his death?
There's, obviously 3 dummies with a podcast talking about it right now.
Yeah, I read an article that was just published like last year.
Yeah, people are still talking about it, and he's still being cited. I mean, we were talking about the one that was
the Albuquerque one.
Albuquerque.
Well, they had and by the way, that was the worst video ever. I mean, it actually made the news in Albuquerque, and they played some of that security camera bit, and I don't see. I mean, it could be Andy Kaufman. It could be
anybody.
It could be anybody.
And that was the problem. But there's all these cult followings, all these cult sightings. One of the things is I find it entertaining. Every 5-year anniversary of his death, suddenly there's reports that Kaufman said he was going to take it for 15 years, so he's going to come back this year. Kaufman said he was going to take it for 20 years, he's going to come back this year. Yep. 25, 30, 35, like 35 is the next number that we've got. I really, in my heart of hearts, want to believe that Andy Kaufman is sitting in a retirement home right now, getting his giggle over the fact that the entire world thinks he died in 1984.
Mostly Actually, I think he's probably in a nursing home somewhere saying to some nurse, I was Andy Kaufman. And the nurse is like, I don't know who that is.
I doubt that he's in a nursing home yet.
Did
No.
you? Okay. Did he?
No.
You know what? You know what I want? I mean, this is. I want this to be true, just like what I saw in Bubba Hotep for Elvis to be true.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that was a hilarious story as well, and I want that to be truly what had happened to Elvis.
Yes.
Because, well, I just have a weird thing about famous people like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that in my perfect world, Andy Kaufman faked his death. And I mean, sure, he faked his death when he was 35, so it makes sense he would come back 35 years later.
That could be.
There's a little serendipity in that. Yeah.
I'm sure that you could pick and choose a number from his 35 years.
You could very easily do it in 1 year increments.
You could do.
Which
I mean,
some people do.
I'm sure that you could. You could say, well, 20 was a really sacred number to Andy, so
And
he's going to come back.
meditation thing.
So he's going to come back 20.
You guys ready to know the truth?
Yeah.
No.
Are you Andy?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to know the truth.
No, I ain't Andy. But,
No, you have too much hair to be Andy.
Yeah, I do. But no, what happened is he did fake his own death. He moved to Mexico and he became a Abismo Negro. Yeah, who unfortunately, as we know, did die.
Oh.
Yeah. Actually, I think that if he had faked his own death, he wouldn't have. I don't think he would have stayed away more than a year.
I'd agree with that.
I don't think he would have.
He would have done an Abel.
But-
It would have been like 2 days later.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I think Joe's right. I mean,
I
a
would've been
year is
6
the
months
most
or
you
at
can
the most
push
a
that
year.
joke
Yeah, I agree.
before people consider it offensive.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but you want to know what I really think? Is that no,
I don't know if I do, but okay.
Yeah, no, I think that it's entirely possible. What I think really probably happened is that he actually faking his own death. I think that probably when he found out he was terminally ill, and this really kind of fits in with his personality, he probably got together with Zamuda and with his manager, Shapiro, and said, guys, we've got to pull off this one last big joke. We've got to convince the world, or at least half the world, that I faked my death. And and I'm not saying that's proven, but I just
No,
think
no, no.
that
I
fits
know
with
exactly. I
his
get where you're
character.
coming from.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. Is the last gag
This is what I'm
my
gonna leave.
death.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to
I
leave the
get
world
that.
with. Yeah.
Except I don't know that would be. It doesn't fit in his character. Like, his character was always pulling the wool over their eyes for what wasn't happening instead of what was really happening, which is the I'm alive is what wasn't happening. So that's why I'm in the camp of I want him to have faked all of it.
Yeah,
All of it.
I do too, but I don't think he did.
I don't. I sadly don't think so either. But
Yeah, I agree with that. I want him to, but I don't think.
Yeah, I think that, as far as faking your own death and not letting anybody in on it other than a couple of close associates, it's kind of a dick move. And you come back a year or two later, not everybody's going to be thrilled about it. They're going to be happy that you're alive, but they're going to be really...
And there's going to be a lot of people that don't talk to you ever again.
Well, he
Because
did.
that's a huge emotional trauma.
Yeah, it is.
He did want out of his relationship.
That's a good point. But, yeah.
That is the ultimate way to get out of a relationship.
Well, I've used that a few times. Take my death and move away.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking happened. I think that's what happened. I think he probably toyed with the idea before he became terminally ill. He toyed with it, and then when it finally came around, he talked to Bob and Greg or
George Shapiro.
and said, dude, just keep this alive, okay? And when you think about it too, because he was a celebrity and a famous guy and everything, he probably didn't want to fade away. And this is a way to keep it.
It is a way to keep the legend going.
A good way, yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what I suspect.
Well, that's all we got on this particular one. We will, of course, have some links that will be discussions or articles about Andy. We might put a link to a YouTube playlist on the website. I don't know what it'll be at this point. But if you want to see that stuff, you're more than welcome to do so. That website, of course, as always, is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On the website, we do have several different options for supporting the show. We've got merchandise. This will all be on the right-hand side, by the way, in the little column there. We've got shirts and phone cases and mugs and all of those good things. So those are available on Zazzle or Redbubble. The stickers as well. If you want to do a monetary contribution to the show, you're welcome to do that. We have PayPal for a one-time contribution, so if that's what works for your budget, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, really.
If you would like to be more of a ongoing donation,
Sustaining,
as Devin likes to say it,
Phones ringing in the background.
you are welcome to do that. We have a profile set up or account set up, Thinking Sideways, and that is, just so everybody knows, that is a donation per episode that we come out with. So if you decide that you want to give us $20 per, be aware that that's going to be $20 per episode, not just a flat $20.
unless you cap it at a monthly $20 a month.
Which then, yeah.
Then you just
That
donate
becomes awkward.
$20, and it's weird.
It becomes weird.
Yeah. And also, by the way, we drop a regular episode once a week.
Yep.
And
So it's about 4.
So occasionally we drop a short or something like that.
We never
stuff
charge
like
for
that.
those
We don't
kind of
charge
things.
for those.
Yeah, no, those
so
are
don't
those are
worry about
extras,
that.
bonus
We're
things.
not,
We never
yeah,
charge for that
We're
stuff.
not putting those in there to make more money after you get it. And by
As
the way,
much as Joe asked me to do it, I decided not to.
yeah, and by the way, this is optional.
Oh,
you
yeah,
don't
no.
need to contribute if you don't want to.
No,
Just
we
helps you
make
defray
this we
expenses,
make the
but-
content because we like to. If you'd like to contribute, we appreciate that, but by no means a requirement.
No, we don't expect it.
Yep, we are on iTunes. That seems to be the primary portal that people find the show through. If you're finding us on iTunes, please do take the time to subscribe, and if you're enjoying it, leave a positive review and rating. If you're not enjoying it, go ahead and leave a positive review and rating.
Absolutely.
And then email us.
and then emails.
And then go ahead and email us with the things that aren't working for you. You can email us at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com, where we field conversations, story suggestions, general fan letters, anything and everything. We will respond to all of it.
Eventually.
Eventually, sometimes it takes a little bit of a while. We're on just about every streaming site that's out there, so I'm not going to name them all because I don't have that kind of time. But if you use one of those, awesome, find us on it.
Are we on the Facebook?
We are on the Facebook. We are on the Facebook, and we have a Facebook page and a Facebook group, both of which are very busy and very fun. So do take the time to like the page and or join the group. We have a subreddit, which Devin knows about, and I still haven't gone to.
Thank God.
I have gone to it. I'm just not in the habit of going out there very
I
much.
forget
need to go
all
out
the
there.
time.
Yeah.
I know you do.
And we also have a Twitter account, so we are on Twitter at Thinking Sideways with a G in the middle.
You can see pictures of my weird bruises.
Yeah, I didn't. You really
You have
should.
pictures of your weird.
That was weird.
You're welcome.
Really weird.
People liked it.
Mm.
And I get to prove that I'm falling apart at
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You weird robotic device you. Okay. Well, that's all I've got on this particular episode. You guys got anything else?
No, just if you're Andy, find us on Facebook and join the group and tell us what you've been up to.
You can just email us. I mean,
you can
you don't have
email
to
us,
out
too.
yourself publicly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm just gonna go ask my Uncle Andy.
Oh,
All right.
good idea,
Yeah.
Andy.
Hey guys, Steve here. You are listening to one of our original 26 episodes. If you've listened to any of our new episodes, you're gonna notice that we're sounding a little different than these ones.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
There is.
They've been remastered
They have been remastered.
because they had a really annoying hum.
Yeah, I mean, a huge thanks to listener James for doing almost all of the legwork on this
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
You'll also notice if you had listened to what we're calling the Lost 26 episodes before, and you're re-listening now, the music and sound effects are gone.
Yes, we've gone back to straight audio. So be warned, we sound a little different today than we do in what you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Uh-huh.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know. What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Well, hello there.
Welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. We are the podcast that tackles the unsolved mysteries that have baffled people through the ages, and we solve them. My name is Joe. On my left is
Steve.
And on my right is
Devin.
And so we're going to delve into another really cool unsolved mystery. This is the Anjakuni Lake mystery. It's a disappearance of an entire tribe of Eskimos, and this story has got everything. It's got mysterious blue blinking lights in the sky, church desecration, Canadian mounted police, grave robbery, and a cross-dressing dog. And did I leave anything out?
No, I think you hit it all. It is the full meal too.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Okay, so let's get started here. Our story starts in November of 1930. A fur trapper named Joe LaBelle is in the Northwest Territories of Canada. This is like the area north of Manitoba. It's since been partitioned off, and they created a new province called, I forget what it's called. It's like Niuetu or something like that. But they created a new province for the Inuit Indians down in the Northwest Territories.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Lake Anjakuni is located about 200 miles west of Hudson Bay and well north of Manitoba. So anyway, he was trudging along looking for this village where apparently he was familiar with the inhabitants, and he'd been by there many times and had friends there, and he was hoping to spend the night there and maybe get a hot meal. He comes to it in the evening, apparently like, I don't know what, or it's like early evening, and it was not quite dark yet, apparently.
Like twilight?
Like around twilight, yeah, maybe twilight, that's a good word. The village, as the story goes, was huts and some tents. And when he approached it, he noticed that it was unnaturally quiet. And normally you would expect to hear the sounds of people and dogs barking and such things. And there were no noises coming from the village, which piqued his interest just a little bit. Also, he noted that none of the chimneys had smoke coming out of them, which is unusual. This is late November, and this is, of course, kind of towards the Arctic Circle, so it's going to be really, really cold out.
Yeah.
So he did notice a fire some distance away from the village, and so he walked to the fire. And when he got there, the fire was embers, but there was nobody there. So he walked back to the village and started looking in the huts, and what he found is that they all looked like people had been living in them recently. They all were stocked with food and had clothing and other possessions laying around. The rifles, all the villagers' rifles, were leaning in their usual spot against the wall near the doorway. And but there was nobody there in any of these huts. He found a pot of stewed caribou in one, which was moldy. Apparently, he'd been sitting there for a while. He found a half-mended sealskin coat in another that still had the needle in it. But there was nobody there. There was no signs of violence. Nothing was torn up or anything. But the people were all gone. So his next step was to circle the outside of the village. He was looking for any footprints that would tell him what direction they had gone in. If they had all suddenly made a mass exodus, he was wondering what direction they'd gone. He circled the entire perimeter of the village, found nothing. So at this point, he was getting kind of creeped out. So he decided to head off to, apparently there was a telegraph office about 25 miles away. So he decided to head to this telegraph office and get a message off to the Mounties and get them in there to investigate this mysterious disappearance. And some telling they arrived there several hours later, and some tellings they arrived like the next day. All of that sounds a little fantastic to me because this place was hundreds of miles away from anywhere. And so, but eventually the Mounties arrived. So they meet up with Mr. LaBelle, and then they started heading back to Anjakuni. And on their way, they encounter a trapper named Armand Laurent and his two sons, who lived in a shanty somewhere on the way, obviously. And they asked them if they'd seen anything out of the ordinary. They said that they'd seen a gleaming object in the sky a few days before. Laurent said that the object changed its shape and that it was flying in the general direction of Lake Anjakuni. So the Mounties continued to Anjakuni and found it was still empty. They were searching the village, and they discovered that the village burial ground had been plundered. All of the graves had been opened, and the bodies had been removed. In other accounts, only one grave had been opened with the body removed. And some accounts say the marker stones for the graves were stacked into two neat piles on either sides of the graves. They also discovered some sled dogs about 300 feet from the village. Some accounts say 2 to 3 sled dogs, and some say 7, but they apparently had starved to death. And in one account, they were tied to some scrubby trees. And I don't know how much they have in the way of scrubby trees up there, because this is kind of like in the Arctic, and it's above the tree line, so there might not have been a tree around for miles. And lastly, they reported seeing bluish lights on the horizon in the twilight. And of course, obviously, these people were used to living in the frozen wastelands of the north, and they know what the aurora borealis looks like.
So it wasn't that.
Yeah, so it wasn't the aurora borealis; it was blue blinking lights, which eventually disappeared. They found some berries in a cooking pot, and based on the growing season for these berries, etc., and the state of deterioration of the berries, they concluded that the Inuits had been gone for 2 months or longer. So that's our story.
So we've got a completely deserted village.
Deserted village.
We don't know what happened to these people. Like they didn't just show up, 20 miles away in a new camp or anything like that. They just disappeared.
They just disappeared.
This isn't like the Roanoke Island story, right? Where it's like, oh, all of these people disappeared, but all of a sudden there's blonde-haired, blue-eyed Indians.
Exactly. Yeah.
How weird.
I know.
It's not like that.
No,
right?
no.
We're saying they've just disappeared.
They apparently just disappeared. Nobody. Moving forward, this is we've talked about these sorts of things before. This is a tale that's kind of grown in the telling.
Yeah, it's old.
Yeah, it's old. It's been around since 1930 when the original story was published.
Well, I remember this one is inflated.
Oh, it's massively inflated. Massively inflated. For example, the part about the Mounties running into that trapper named Armand Laurent and who purported seeing a UFO headed towards Lake Anchikuni. Apparently, that part of the story appeared in 1983. Somebody wrote a book called The World's Great UFO Mysteries. And they just sort of tacked on that part of the story.
The blue lights part?
Well, not the blue lights part, but the part about running into this trapper named Armand Laurent. And,
that whole thing.
And him saying that he'd seen a UFO. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they didn't run into the trapper?
No, apparently not before 1983. So other embellishments have been put in. And just for the sake of our listeners, I'm going to go back to the original story, but first I want to go through some of the later stories because they're kind of fun. In another version of the story, there were 2,000 people in the village who vanished.
That's a big village.
Yeah, it's a pretty big Eskimo village.
City.
Yeah, I know. In this retelling, the village had a population of this is yet another one, had a population of up to 2,500. It had a Catholic church, a local watering hole, i.e. bar, and it had docks with kayaks tied up to them. As in the other versions, most of the huts had possessions, including rifles, left behind in them.
Yeah, the rifles are the interesting part, right? Because you can kind of explain it away.
Yeah.
Not to go too into theories yet, but you can kind of explain stories like this way, like, oh, they just left. Mm-hmm. They all left for like some mysterious reason.
Yeah.
But if you're going to wander into the Arctic, you wander with your rifles, right?
Yeah, you sort of got to defend yourself.
There are kind of our critters out there that'll eat you. Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that at least that persists.
Yeah. So there's all these rifles left behind, which is inexplicable. They left their kayaks behind. So anyway, our friend, the trapper, Joe LaBelle, went to this watering hole. He came to the village, found it mysteriously empty. So he went to the local watering hole, which was on the outskirts of the village. It's kind of a cafe, or it was kind of a cafe bar. And it was called the Mac Shack.
So this isn't the overzealous telling
This is in later retellings of the story, yeah. So he goes to the Mac Shack, which is named for its owner, Fran McKenzie. He found it empty, but McKenzie had been crippled in crutch. But he found the place empty, but McKenzie's crutch was in pieces on the floor, which he found kind of disconcerting. And then he looks through a window and he notices a bonfire about 400 yards away. So he heads that way, but when he gets there, there's no one there. There's a stew, apparently of seal meat, cooking in a pot, and so a few artifacts and possessions were laying about, but there were no people. He left at that time because he was thoroughly creeped out. He went to that same telegraph office 25 miles away. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrived, some say the next day, and some people say longer. I'm guessing longer, really, in real life. But of course, this isn't really real life. So
2,000 people.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Yeah, I think the population of that entire province is about today about 15 or 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Back in 1930, I'm sure it was a lot less.
Yeah.
It's a pretty empty place.
So in this fantastical version.
Well, so anyway, the mystery deepens. When they got there, they found Mackenzie's diary in his bedroom. So in the entry previous to the day that LaBelle arrived, he wrote that strange blue lights had been appearing in the night sky for several days before. So if that's true, then of course that means he was there just the day before LaBelle arrived in the village.
Yeah.
So yeah, a real sudden exodus of these people. Here's another really creepy part. Nearby, outside, they found Mackenzie's dog, which was a husky, a female husky. The dog was dead.